Each day ends, but most of us carry it into the next. The conversation that lingered, the mistake we couldn't fix, the feeling we never spoke, the tension we never let soften. And so time blurs. Days bleed into each other, not like a river, but like a wound that never closes. But Marcus Aurelius knew something we've forgotten. You must let the day die. Before you do, he wrote it again and again, in the quiet of early morning, in the shadows of command. While Rome stirred and plotted and worshipped false gods, he reminded himself, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. Not as a threat, not as fear, as clarity. Because once you accept death as certain, you begin to see each moment as rare. And what is rare is treated with reverence. This is why the Stoics practiced dying, not with drama, not with despair, but with discipline. Every evening they asked themselves, what did I carry today that wasn't mine? Where did I lie to myself? Where did I act as if I would live forever? And then they released it. Not perfectly, not easily, but deliberately. Because to Marcus, dying daily was not about morbidity. It was about maintenance, about cleaning the inner house before it calcifies with ego and noise. We are so afraid of endings, we forget that the end is where the truth returns. And the truth is simple. Each day, something must be laid down so something else can rise. Your pride, your need to win, your resentment, your idea of who you were this morning. The practice is not dramatic. It's quiet. Sit, close your eyes, ask, if today were my last, what part of me needs to be forgiven, released, or simply let go? And then, don't carry it with you. Don't make it heavier by calling it yours. Let the day die, so that when sleep comes, you are not resisting, you are returning. Like a soldier who has put down his sword, like a child who no longer needs to perform, like a soul who remembers that to sleep well, you must practice how to end well. And tomorrow, if it comes, you rise not as a continuation, but as a resurrection. We wake up tired, not because the body is weak, but because the soul is heavy. We carry things that were never ours, unspoken expectations, inherited guilt, fears planted in us long before we had the words to refuse them. And over time, we begin to mistake the weight for identity. We think, this is just who I am. I overthink. I can't let go. I need to prove myself. But Marcus Aurelius would say, no, you've simply forgotten to set it down. If it's not right, don't do it. If it's not true, don't say it. Let your intent be simplicity. Simplicity is not emptiness, it's clarity. And clarity begins with asking, what have I picked up that I don't need to carry anymore? We carry the past like a shield, but it makes us slow. We carry roles that used to serve us, but now suffocate. We carry the pressure to be liked, to be perfect, to never fail. And slowly, we grow exhausted from dragging shadows. But you can't live fully if your arms are full of ghosts. This is why the Stoics spoke of death, not as tragedy, but as practice. The practice of letting go before you are forced to. The practice of dying to what is false so you can rise in what is true. It's not dramatic. It's not poetic. It's often just quiet honesty. At the end of the day, ask yourself, whose voice am I still obeying? Whose expectations am I still performing for? What belief about myself am I still clinging to, even though it no longer serves me? And then, imagine leaving it on the ground, like a coat that no longer fits, like armor you no longer need. Not with resentment, but with reverence. Because some burdens are old friends we've outgrown. To die each day is to choose lightness again and again. Not because life is easy, but because you refuse to make it heavier than it is. Marcus didn't seek suffering. He sought freedom. And freedom, he knew, requires subtraction. Let go of what isn't yours, so you can carry what actually is. To remember death is not to become dark, it is to become awake. Most people live as if time owes them something, as if tomorrow is a guarantee, as if meaning can wait. But the Stoics, they didn't think that way. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do every act of your life as if it were the last, not as a performance, as a clarifier." When you live with death in mind, you begin to see what matters and what never did. You stop arguing over the small things. You stop performing for people who aren't listening. You stop rushing toward goals that don't lead you back to yourself. You begin to feel the shape of now, not as a means to an end, but as everything. Because when you die to the future, you return to the present. This moment as it is, without correction, without comparison. This is the paradox. To prepare for death is to become more alive. Not more frantic, not more desperate, but more attentive. You taste the tea. You notice the sound of the wind. You hear the pain in someone's voice without needing to fix it. You begin to witness instead of just reacting. You begin to feel that presence is not something you try to do. It's what remains when the ego dies. When you no longer need to prove, to plan, to hold together some illusion of control, then finally, you are here. Marcus didn't meditate on death because he wanted to suffer. He did it so he could strip away distraction. Because distraction is the first form of death, and presence is the beginning of life. So yes, practice dying. Practice letting go of your need to be right, to be first, to be perfect. Practice returning to the simplicity of breath, body, now. And you'll realize you're not rehearsing for death, you're remembering how to truly live. We spend most of life holding on to people, to ideas, to our version of the story. And deep down, we know we'll have to let go eventually, but we resist it. We delay, we grip tighter. Because letting go feels like loss, like failure, like surrender. But Marcus Aurelius saw it differently. Receive without pride, let go without attachment. Letting go wasn't a tragedy, it was an art, a daily practice, a choice made not in weakness, but in wisdom. Because everything you love will eventually leave you, or you will leave it. And that is not cruelty, that is the structure of reality. So what do? You can fight at rage against every change, cling to every moment, turn memory into monuments. Or you can let go before it's taken, not because it doesn't matter, but because it does. You let go because clinging distorts the thing you're holding. You let go because fear poisons the love. You let go because trying to keep something forever is how you crush it in your grasp. Letting go is not detachment, it is reverence. It is the hand open, not closed, the heart soft, not armored, the presence full, not desperate. But it takes courage, because we were raised to associate holding on with caring. We were told that keeping is proof of value, that to release something means it wasn't real. But the Stoics knew better. They knew that to truly love, you must hold lightly, because love is not possession, it's witnessing. to stand beside someone, fully, without needing to control what happens next. That is the highest form of love. To experience beauty without needing to capture it, to enjoy success without fearing its loss, to accept change without becoming bitter. That is the discipline. To look at what you cherish and say, I will hold you with both hands, but I will never close my fists. Because I know you are temporary, and I am too. And that's what makes this moment sacred. When Marcus woke in the morning, he reminded himself that death was near, not to terrify himself, but to clarify the stakes. When you let go before it's taken, you stop bargaining with time. You stop performing immortality. You begin to live with softness, with readiness, with real attention. You no longer say, I'll be present later. You say, I'm here now because this might be the last time. You no longer say, I'll forgive them eventually. You say, let me forgive now while they can still feel it. You no longer wait for the pain to justify the goodbye. You say it with dignity because you're learning that letting go with grace is better than waiting for it to be ripped from your hands. And no, it doesn't make you less human, it makes you more. Because you are practicing what most people only learn when it's too late. That every ending is a gift in disguise. It brings you back. It clarifies the preciousness. It returns you to now. So let go of the version of yourself you no longer are, of the grudges that eat your energy, of the illusion that anything lasts forever. And when it does go, you won't be broken. You'll be ready, not empty, not numb, but open. There is a quiet ritual that happens every day. No announcement, no eulogy, no mourning clothes. Only you, the dark, and the silence that asks, what are you ready to let die? Marcus Aurelius didn't fear death. He practiced it, not with candles or chanting, but with reflection, with humility, with presence. To him, death wasn't a distant final act. It was something you met every evening, gently, intimately, like an old friend returning at dusk. When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive. But when you lay down at night, think of what you are ready to release. Every night is a small funeral, not of your life, but of the day you just lived. It's an invitation to bury the noise, the tension, the grasping. To put it down as you would lay flowers at a grave, with care, with honesty, with full awareness of what it meant and what it didn't. But most of us don't bury our days. We drag them through the night, into tomorrow, unfinished conversations, half-swallowed regrets, mental to-do lists, echoing like ghosts through our sleep. No wonder we wake up already tired. We never let yesterday end. We never gave it a proper funeral. But imagine if you did. Imagine lying down at night and saying, this day is done. It gave what it gave. It took what it took. And I don't need to carry any of it into the dark. Imagine closing your eyes with gratitude, not guilt, with surrender, not analysis, not replaying every misstep, not forecasting tomorrow, just breathing, like someone who knows the day has died, and that's okay, because it was never meant to live forever. You weren't meant to be haunted by 1,000 unfinished moments. You were meant to learn, to release, to rest. And rest isn't what you earn after doing enough. It's what you practice when you finally understand that doing isn't everything. The day doesn't need you to rewrite it. It needs you to let it return to where all days go, somewhere past memory, past striving, into the quiet soil of being. This is not a loss. It's a return, a sacred rhythm. Inhale, live, exhale, let go. Breathe out the pressure. Breathe out the posture. Breathe out the expectation that you always must do more. Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to stop. To close your eyes not in escape, but in reverence. To say, I have done what I could. I will not carry more than I must. Let this day end so I can begin again lighter. That's what Marcus understood. That's what we forget. We fear death because we never practice it. And so we fear endings, not knowing that they are what give shape to life. But when you make space for endings, you make space for new beginnings. You sleep deeper. You dream wider. You rise cleaner. Because you've honored the truth. Every night is a small funeral, and every morning a resurrection. Most of what you are disappears. Your name, your plans, your inbox, your calendars, habits, roles, titles, the clever things you said, the goals you chased, the curated self. It all goes. Marcus Aurelius saw this, not with fear, but with clarity. Soon you will have forgotten everything. Soon everything will have forgotten you. He wasn't being cruel, he was being free. Because when you truly grasp what ends with you, you begin to pay closer attention to what doesn't. You begin to notice what echoes. Not your ambition, but your kindness. Not your image, but your integrity. Not your output, but your presence. We think legacy is built through accumulation, through greatness, through grand, permanent things. But permanence is an illusion. Marble erodes, books are shelved, statues fall. But the feeling someone had when they were with you that stays. The way you listened when they needed silence. The way you softened the room just by being there. The way you carried yourself with steadiness when everyone else panicked. Those moments don't die with you. Because those moments weren't about you at all. They were about something deeper passing through you. Marcus didn't write his meditations to be remembered. He wrote them to forget himself, to focus on what mattered in the face of what would fade. And every night, in the quiet of his own mind, he practiced letting the rest go. The titles, the victories, the judgments, because he knew they were all leaves in the wind. What mattered was whether he had lived with clarity, whether he had honored the nature of things, whether he had kept his inner citadel, his soul clear of clutter and falsehood. That is the practice of dying, asking, if I do not wake tomorrow, what would I be proud to leave behind? And not in some grand, dramatic sense, but in the quiet, lived moments. The apology made, the resentment released, the peace offered. Because what dies with you is almost everything, but what stays is what you gave without needing to be seen. That's where immortality lives, not in monuments, in meaning. And meaning is often invisible, small, quiet. A held hand, an act of restraint, a kind word at the right time. The ego doesn't think that's enough, but the soul knows better. Marcus Aurelius ruled the known world, but in the end, he turned inward, to the breath, to the now, to the vanishing. And he found peace there, because he understood, to die well is to live now as if nothing is owed to you and everything is offered through you. That is the way to leave something behind without needing to own it. To live in such a way that when you are gone, what mattered most doesn't leave. There is a silence deeper than any cave. It doesn't come from the absence of sound. It comes from the absence of struggle. Most of us are always proving that we're good enough, that we're smart enough, that we belong, that we matter. We build our lives around it. Career, relationships, image, speech, proof becomes the purpose. And what we're really saying is this: please don't forget me. Please see me as worthy. But Marcus Aurelius saw right through it. Ambition means tying your well-being to what other people say or do. Sanity means tying it to your own actions. He knew the truth. The desire to prove is a desire to escape yourself, to be validated so you don't have to validate yourself, to be praised so you don't have to sit in silence, to be right so you don't have to be real. And the problem is, it never ends. No matter how much you accomplish, it's never enough. No matter how many people believe in you, you still fear the moment you're alone and the applause fades. Because the audience you're performing for isn't out there. It's inside you. That voice, that perfectionist, that fragile child who learned that being seen meant being safe. So you prove, and prove, and prove. But Marcus asks, what happens when there's nothing left to prove? What happens when you stop trying to impress a world that forgets you in a blink? What happens when you stop trying to win a game no one is actually keeping score of? You find freedom, not relief, not validation, something older, wider. You begin to see that peace is not a reward, it's what was waiting when you dropped the armor. You begin to realize that the truest version of you has no interest in being admired. It only wants to be aligned with what's real, with what's kind, with what's clear. And this is why the Stoics practice death. Because to die every day is to release the performance. To say, I don't need to be more than I am right now. I don't need to outshine. I don't need to compete. I don't even need to explain. I can just live quietly, clearly, intentionally, and let my actions, not my image, speak for me. That kind of freedom scares the ego, but it liberates the soul. Because when you no longer need to be impressive, you become true. And what is true doesn't fade when no one's watching. It grows. It becomes stronger in silence, deeper in failure, clearer in solitude. So ask yourself, if today were your last, who would you stop trying to convince? What mask would you set down? What story would you stop telling? There's freedom waiting in that answer. And it begins the moment you say, I have nothing left to prove. And that's when I truly begin. To most, death is the end, a wall, a silence that cannot be crossed. But Marcus Aurelius knew better. To him, death was not a single event. It was a rhythm. A quiet, invisible companion meant not to frighten, but to guide. Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good. To die every day is not to give up on life. It is to return to it fully, honestly, without illusion. It's not about endings, it's about essence. Because when you live as if this moment is your last, you see with different eyes. You speak with fewer masks. You love without hesitation. You listen more, rush less, forgive quicker, hold lighter. And what dies in that practice is everything false. The pride, the performance, the pressure, the obsession with what doesn't matter, and the blindness to what does. What remains is a life that doesn't need an audience. A life rooted in presence, not projection. A life where waking up is no longer something you take for granted, but something you bow to. That's what dying daily does. It humbles you in the most beautiful way. You start to see the ordinary as sacred. A single conversation, the curve of a hand, a soft light in a familiar room. you begin to realize you've missed so much of your life trying to outrun it. But death has a strange gift. It stops the race. It reminds you, this is it. You don't get to redo this day. You don't get to rehearse the moment you're in. So stop waiting, stop rehearsing, stop postponing the clarity you're capable of right now. Say the thing, make the call, breathe like it means something. Because it does. Living is not just breathing, it's paying attention. It's returning again and again to the now and letting go of everything that insists you should be elsewhere. That is the Stoic death, and that is the Stoic life. To let go of what you cannot control, to embrace what you cannot keep, to give without needing return, to love with the full awareness it could end tomorrow, and to do all of it not with despair but with dignity. Marcus Aurelius didn't ask us to fear death. He asked us to become familiar with it, so that we wouldn't be surprised, so that we could stop delaying the truth. You don't become fully alive by holding on. You become fully alive by letting go. Let go of the illusion of permanence. Let go of the hunger for more. Let go of the fantasy that life begins later. It begins here. It begins now. It begins the moment you learn to die while you're still alive. And from that death, you don't disappear. You awaken.